Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 105 of the Whitey and Will Sports Show. Today is Sunday, March 3rd, 2024. And we've got, as you can already tell, we have got guests on the show today. Altamont High School, the girls basketball team, fresh off of a third place finish at the Class 1A state tournament. We have got Coach Craig Carr. And listen, you probably already know who Grace Nelson is, but Grace is with us, a senior from that team. Newly minted four-time IBCA all first team All-Stater. She was on the Associated Press first team All-State this year. Not the first time for that either. And of course, one of the leaders on that Altamont team. We have got them with us. So first of all, Grace and Craig, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Thanks I know you've had a busy weekend. You had your welcome home today, but thanks both of you for jumping on with us.
Absolutely, man. Love doing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we get started, and by the way, after Coach Carr and Grace jump off with us, we will have plenty of time, Mike and I, to talk about the Teutopolis boys team, which is a win away from making a return trip to state itself. But Mike, before we get started interviewing these guys, I know you had something you just had to get off your chest about a little tidbit that you fed me on the radio Friday night during that T-Town sectional championship.
Well, and I wasn't sure, Whitey, usually when I send you something, you don't even mention it. So I wasn't sure you were going to mention it. But I did tell you that Jason Hanson's son was a member of the Benton Rangers. I've since found out that's not true because they moved from Benton to McLeansboro during Eli's junior season. So he's a senior at McLeansboro. McLeansboro this year, Hamilton County.
Yep.
So that was poor information on my part. And I just thought it was unique and and then I sent it to you. And then I thought, I better check my sources. But it didn't take long for people to be sending text to me with bad words in them.
Yep. Well, just, I'll probably take everything with a grain of salt from now on when you feed it to me. But we got that way.
Sweet Roll and Kent Nieberge were the two big people yelling at me.
Well, I can imagine Kent Nieberge letting you have it. All right. So, okay, we got that out of the way. Now, we've got our guest of honor. Finished third place at state. First of all, how was the welcome home today? Was pretty good time in Altamont this afternoon?
Go ahead, Grace.
Yeah, it was so cool to have everyone able to be there today after long weekend, and just have everyone back in the gym.
And it has been a big week. You go to Farmer City on Monday, you win a super sectional. That was a battle. Obviously you had to work extremely hard to get through that and turn around, make the trip to Bloomington. An overtime game against the Illini Bluffs in the semifinals. Dropped that one in overtime. It was another battle. Got behind early, but got back into that game and led for a pretty substantial portion of it, and then had to bounce back after the semifinal not going your way and play the third place game. And so I guess my first question here is, that's a long day on Thursday when you play two games and you have that gap between a 9:30 start and a 6:30 start for the third place game. But it seemed like, how difficult is it to get regrouped and turned around after that semifinal and get yourself up for that third place game and give yourself a chance to end the season on a win? And anybody who wants to answer, feel free to jump in there.
You go first, Grace.
Okay. Well, it was definitely an early morning and a really late night. And after that first game, it was such a tough loss. I think a lot of us were just down in the dumps, which I knew I was, because we were so close to just winning that game. And we all knew we might have regretted how we played, and just, you could always go back to that game and be like, I could have done this different, that different, but we knew we wanted to end the season on a win. So we just all rested up, tried to rest our legs, because playing two games in one day is difficult, especially when you went into overtime. And so we just rested up and then came out that night with all the energy we had, and so we could end on a win.
Anything to add to that, Coach Carr?
Yeah, I mean, I've said more than once, there's a lot of tears in the locker room after that semi. I think we realized how close we were to playing Saturday morning and made it hurt all that much more. I was so like we played great, but we just played tough, and we just outlasted St. Grace was just dynamic as always, and we had kids hit some big shots in the second half, and it was such a great feeling as I kind of wound down to realize, hey, we did bounce back. We had, these kids have a ton of character, and they showed it on Thursday in that third place game. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, like you kind of said in your comments there, like it wasn't a pretty third place game, but they rarely are, and that's you win on guts, right? You get out there and show what you're made of, and so that was just one last testament to the character of the team, and really since the beginning of the year, I think that your girls have been sort of showing that, right? I mean, I think my observation with Altamont girls basketball, and you can tell me what you think about this, is that obviously everybody knew that Grace is an exceptional player. She's no secret around here, but I think everybody on the team just took a really big step forward this year, and that was how you got to the point you were, because Altamont's been good for the last 3 years. This was just a shove in the right direction.
Yeah, I think so. We had different kids, making different plays all the time, and so many big shots this year from people like Bree Grunlow, Claire Bain made a lot of big shots. Peyton made some huge shots. Kaylee had probably her second best game of the year in the semi against Bluffs.
Yeah.
So it's definitely been a team effort. I think, the difference was just the seniors. I mean, that's for me to say. I think that this year's senior group, last year the group only had one senior. This year with 4, I think the leadership was balanced. Obviously, great way, but she was one that spoke up, and I think that made the biggest difference. Just that senior leadership.
Yep. Grace, had you ever played like an organized game on the court there at Illinois State? I know, I mean, obviously you're going to, but I'm sure you've shot there before. Had you ever played in any sort of competitive game there before this weekend?
No, I'd never played on that floor, except I think one time on an unofficial visit, I had like shot around before practice, but that was the only time I had touched a basketball in that gym.
So how did it feel? What did you think of it? What were the first impressions of the court that you're going to be playing on for the next 4 years?
I thought it was going to be way different, like shooting, just because of the backdrops behind each rim. Like you're not used to being just that open area. But once you got out there, I mean, it's just like any other floor, really. It didn't really mess me up any.
Looks like maybe
Grace, I got an observation for a question and an observation for you. First, the observation. This is the first time I saw you play this year. I've seen you play in the past, but probably the thing that impressed me the most, and you only saw it, you'd have a nice offensive play on one end, and then as you're going back on defense, the cameras would focus on you, was how vocal you were getting everybody kind of helping with defense on the way back. I'd not seen that. I saw you play as a junior, and I didn't notice that, but I noticed that, and I was very impressed with the fact that, sometimes when you're scoring points, you don't, hey, I'll go guard Sparky in the corner. I'm okay. But you were I wasn't surprised you were taking a leadership role, but I really liked I could tell what you were doing. And it was that, did you kind of, have you done that always, or is that this really kind of got into that leadership role more this year?
I feel like in the past 3 years, it's been not as much as a role I've tried to like take advantage of. But this year, knowing how much potential we had as a team, I just told myself I needed to step up and be more of that leader that talks, can make sure everyone's in line, make sure all the younger girls know what they're doing. So I kind of just took that to my own. I just try to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, coaching, I knew what you were doing, and it's always good. And I know Coach Carr will, applaud that. You always want other coaches on the floor who are emphasizing, hey, remember, there's a shooter, we're getting back,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And, you just don't see that everywhere anymore, to be honest.
Not long before the postseason, we had a practice where there weren't a whole lot of kids there. We had a JV tournament somewhere, and practice started off really poorly. And Grace stopped a drill and challenged her teammates and rhetorically asked them how committed they were to winning a regional. And, Grace is a soft-spoken kid. She always talked about, we got to be ready to play, keep talking, things like that. But she hadn't done that before. And I think that made an impact. I think that was something that kind of got the ball rolling to help us get, where we needed to be mentally heading into the postseason. So I give her a lot of credit for that. And I was really proud of her for that day.
Now, Grace, is that a difficult attitude to take when you're not a senior on the team? Because, even if you know that you're a good player and you know that you're an accomplished player, when there's older kids there, can it be difficult to do that? Or do you just feel like, you're just always growing yourself and that's just something you felt comfortable finally doing there as a senior?
That's why I felt comfortable at that point, because I knew my teammates trusted me to do that and say that. Some of them might not have been as happy with that statement, but they knew, like, as a team, we needed to do that to get the job done.
Now, I want to ask you something. I'm sure that when Coach Carr got hired, there was an introductory meeting of some kind, and I want to know what was your first impression? I assume that you didn't. Maybe I don't know if you guys knew each other in any way or not, but what was your first impression of Coach Carr when you met him?
Well, so there was talks like at the end of last year about who are and my dad he knew, but I didn't know who it was yet. And they're like, well, his wife from track. And I was like, at first I didn't know who it was, and I don't think I had ever seen him before. And then honestly don't remember the first time like we all met as a team. I don't know. Did you come in? I don't remember.
It was the day after I got hired. I drove all the way over there.
Hey,
they say an impact on somebody.
Hey, first impressions are important.
Keep talking.
First impressions are important, Craig.
Okay. So first practice, first workout, because there's obviously summer stuff that happened before official practices. But what was the impression of the team after you got on the court and rolled balls out there and started talking philosophy, talking this is what we're gonna do? How did we feel about Coach Carr then?
That he was very committed and we knew that like he was into this. Like I like to say this, that he had way more energy than all of us.
I've heard some things, it doesn't surprise me. Coach, you're an energetic guy on the sideline too. Pretty engaged in the game. Not a lot of seated moments. You just hard to relax in that setting, I think, for you. Is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, hard to relax for sure. I can say that as an athletic director for the last 5 years, I defended officials day in, day out. And this year, I really had to remind myself that it is very difficult to officiate basketball, and these guys are really good guys, and they're not out to get me. Yeah, it's a lot of fun being on the sidelines. What a thrill it was, and it's a lot of fun to watch. I have a better row seat to that team this year. It was a blast.
Now, Grace, at what point? I'm sure going into the year, you had your sights set on making this run, but at what point in the season did you begin to understand and really believe, hey, this is a group that has a chance to make that deep postseason run? Like, we're doing the things we need to do. We are capable of winning those, 4 or 5 games that it takes to get to Bloomington.
I feel like when we won our 19-game winning streak was when everyone was like, okay, like they have some potential. But then going in like right before postseason, we lost 4 of our last 5 games. We have a really tough schedule right before postseason. And I think everyone had some doubt, even myself a little bit. But then after we had beaten Yoga, first round of regionals, and then St. T is when our defense really kicked in. And if we just kept playing defense like that, it was going to be hard to beat us.
But that's the thing, even the regional games, I mean, there were battles. You were down at halftime to Neoga, and I think that's beneficial, is it not, to get tested early, to understand that nothing's a given, nothing's gonna be a cakewalk.
Yeah, that's what I mean, going in, like, they were good games. All of our regionals, sectionals, like, it was a close game that first half, first 3 quarters, and we had to fight. We had to fight hard to get where we were.
Yeah, I doubt that either one of you would have believed, if I'd told you at the beginning of the postseason, that the widest margin was going to be when you ran into Tuscola in the sectional, just because of the way it went the first time you played them and knowing how good they are. That was the Tuscola game. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
We Grace talked about the way we go, and that made all the difference. I mean, we really played great defense. I would say after the North Clay game, we kind of really locked in a better way. We even later scrapped 1-3-1 that we used the first time we played Tuscola almost exclusively, and we just kind of lost it. I couldn't put my finger on it. We played that 1-3-1 against St. Anthony in the conference tournament championship, and did get stops when we needed to very often. So I surveyed the girls after that game. They wanted to match up guard people, and Grace being able to guard the point guard most of the time, or the 2 guard, and Bree being able to guard shooters and just stay with them. Kylie Osteen guarding kids that are bigger than her in the post, but from the post. Kaylee Lurkins did a super job defensively. Peyton, again, guarded kids bigger than her in the post. Libby Reardon was a great boost after she came back from the injury. Great boost on the defensive end. So I think when we decided just to match up and play man-to-man is when we finally really got clicked defensively. And that's totally proud of. I mean, we held them to their lowest point total of the year, physically outmatched, several positions, and we still really locked it down. Great communication. Claire Bame, a lot of times in the postseason, we put her on the team's least threatening offensive player, and she helped on the team's best offensive player or their post, and that made a big difference. She really understood her assignment, and I think the defensive play is something I was really proud of out of these kids.
You talk about your defense, but over the past few years, you've had every gimmick defense in the book thrown at you at some point. When you see that coming, do you see it as an opportunity? I mean, I know you like to get your teammates involved, Grace. So which one of those do you like to see the least? Like, which one are you like, oh no, they're doing this to me? Because I've seen people throw a triangle and two where they put two people on you. I'm sure you've seen your fair share of box and one. I don't know. Does it does it even phase you at this point?
Honestly, I'm just used to it, but just playing, I like towards the end of the year, a lot of teams just played us man and just had someone in my face. And I prefer that because I feel like it was pretty easy for me to get open, and really just a zone in general was, I didn't like just playing against zone, but box and one wasn't too bad to deal with.
Yeah. And the thing is that,
hey, Dustin,
yeah, go ahead.
Hey, we did have a team triangle and two, Grace, shortly after Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And she eventually on her own just went and stood in the corner, and we scored playing 4-on-3 about 4 possessions in a row, and they stopped doing it. But I had heard of that being done. It was the first time I'd ever seen it being done.
Well,
so she has seen it all.
I feel like, so Matt and I did your game against South Central, and I feel like they tried it a little bit. They couldn't quite pull it off, but didn't I mean, even St. Bede tried it for a little bit, didn't they, in the third place game? Am I crazy, or did they doubled you for a while and just sort of?
Yeah, they did, which I don't know if very many girls on the team realized that, but that's when I was like, girls, just one of you get open, and because they had 2 up on me at the top, but they eventually took that off.
Yeah, I didn't. I think, as I recall, yeah, you guys had a little bit of trouble getting it figured out, but then put some points on the board against it, and they had to abandon it. What's as far as playing in those games, there's some things mechanically about it that's just different about the game day experience playing there on that floor, and the TV timeouts, especially in the semifinals and stuff. Anything you weren't ready for, or anything that caught you a little off guard, or do you feel like you're pretty much knew what you were expecting? I'm sure a lot of people had advice for the both of you going into it, probably more than you wanted sometimes. I guess that's probably mostly for you, Coach.
Go ahead, Grace.
Well, as a player, I feel like
I wanted to play out.
As a player, I feel like you're all nervous to go running out on that floor. I mean, it's a pretty big arena, and we had Mrs. Speaker's daughter come talk to us the night before about kind of what to expect with media timeouts. I mean, when you run out. But I feel like once everyone got on the floor and got playing, there wasn't really anything that surprised us, and it was just like a normal game.
Mm-hmm. Sound about right, Coach?
I like the media timeouts because it just gave us a chance to rest a lot more often, and I think that helped. Didn't have another game in the difference, but overall, I was glad that so many of the girls got to play in Redbird, especially a special moment. Get Grace's little sister Ella in that game, and playing for a while, and we just couldn't get a big enough lead, but got pulled away against St. Bede. Good old Coach Goosey said, "Hey, let's get her in there." And I was like, you mentioned that, and then I was glad I actually had a clear thought. Well, hey, you take it out, you throw it into Grace, and that was pretty cool, I think. So it was a great way to end it for me.
Now, I got to give you guys a chance to talk about your fans, because I think that not just student section, although you had an incredibly active and important student section, but just the fan base in general traveled extremely well. And it's you can't put a point total or how much that means, it's not a tangible thing, but yet it's got to be so huge. I look back on the super sectional game and the atmosphere in that little gym, which, it was a little gym for a super sectional, but almost feel like it might have worked to your advantage there because so many folks showed up. This is your chance. Talk about those people that have been along the ride with you, not just for the postseason, but all year long. It's been an enthusiastic fan base.
Well, I feel like starting with
Grace.
Our Tuscola home game is when we saw a lot of people out, the NCC CIC shootout, and then postseason after the first couple of games of regionals is when the tribal council really showed up. I mean, that super sectional game, I think the faces on a lot of people when the 3 fan buses walking in were probably like, oh man, like they have a lot of kids. Like we had 10 kids almost sign up, and they just kept piling into that little gym. And I mean, they basically didn't fit, but it was so loud in that gym, and the Altamont sides were so packed. It was just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was so much fun, to celebrate, to see those kids celebrate with the girls. I even lost my mind a little bit after we won the sectional and ran over and jumped in there and celebrated with those guys. It's such a great bunch of senior guys in that group. And, that made a difference in the scores of the games. I don't have a doubt about that. We made a difference in the outcomes of those games. I'm not saying we wouldn't have won without them, but I don't have a doubt that they made a difference in the way those games played out.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair to say. And you don't see that everywhere, I mean, you love to see the guys on the boys team, for instance, show up to the girls games and support them, because it always works that way. The other way around, I notice, is that you always have the girls that play on the girls team show up for the boys team. It doesn't always go the other way around, but not Altamont. The support goes both ways, and really makes a good impression on the school for everybody that you run across, along that trail, all the way to the state tournament. So yeah, hats off to everybody involved. Mike, what do you got?
We got issues here, but we got them settled, I think. Craig, I wanted to know something, and Grace, you as well. At some point when you make a run like this, you get lucky. You have a moment in the game where you just get a break that really goes your way. And, Coach Crawford always told me, you'll know when it happens. Did you have that break you felt during this run at all that kind of stood out to you?
That's a good question. I don't recall a specific moment. Really, the only moment I can really remember thinking that kind of turned the tables a little was against, I think it was against Tuscola, and they hit a 3, and we tried to rush it up, like we always do. And we had a kid, Skylar Klein, made a 3 about 5 seconds after they made a 3. And that was one moment in that postseason that I thought, well, this really can happen. Because, that thing doesn't happen very often. And there's a kid who kind of had some limited minutes, and she stepped up with no hesitation and just hammered a 3, just a great answer. And that's one thing that kind of stood out to me. It kind of made me think this really can happen, guys. So that's my answer to that one.
Grace, anytime during the tournament you're thinking, okay, if that's going our way, I think we're okay?
Honestly, can't really think of a moment. I feel like just after like winning the first game, after the second, like it seemed like the goals seemed so unreal at first to like make it to stay and stuff, and then just win after win, and then after super sectionals, you're like, this is here, like we made it. It was just, it went by so quick, I feel like.
Now you made 20 out of 21 free throws in that super sectional game. Is that as good as it's been for you? Have you ever had a game where you A, shot that many, and B, made that many? I mean, first of all, how are you going to miss one? Okay. Second of all, 20 for 21 about as good as it gets?
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the most I've shot and made. And that's what, after the game, I hadn't even realized that until someone was like, you shot 21 free throws. And I was like, it didn't feel like I shot that much in the game. But then after, I was like, okay.
Now,
hey, Dustin.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dustin, you were there. She could have shot 31 free throws that night. I'm just going to say it.
Well, I thought it was just impressive that you managed to continue to get it in her hands, because at a certain point they knew what you were trying to do. They were doubling her on the inbounds. And that's another thing, she scores a bunch of points and people are always going to point at that and say, here's all these points, here's all these free throws, but someone has to get you the ball in that situation. Someone has to give you a catchable pass. When everyone in the gym knows what the game plan is, it's to get it in Grace's hands. But again, it goes back to the other girls on the team being able to do what they needed to do. It's a team effort, and that super sectional was as much evidence of it as any game, I thought, despite 20 for 21, So the girls did a great job. Let's see. Oh, something else I need to touch on, Grace. Riding up to Bloomington with Matt Robinson, he was telling me that you played on the boys team at the Lutheran school when you were in 5th grade. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, and you're not the only one from this team that did that. So some of you have been playing ball together for a really long time.
Yeah, in 4th and 5th grade at the Lutheran school, me, Peyton, Claire, and Kylie. I think the first year we kind of played with the boys, and then our 5th grade year we technically had a girls team of our own with only like 6, 7 girls, but we did play against all boys our 5th and 6th grade year, or 4th and 5th grade year, I guess it was.
Now, be honest with me, were you still the best one on the floor during those games too?
I'm gonna say I think our 5th grade year, I don't think we lost a single game with us girls playing against the boys every game.
That's cool. Oh boy. Well, listen, it's been a pleasure to get to see you guys play this year. Your run was a lot of fun. You've represented the National Trail Conference well, and listen, the NTC has been as good a small school girls basketball conference as the state has, and you represented well. But I mean, lots of good players in this conference, and I don't think it's any surprise that we have seen that representation, at the super sectional level, at least for the last 3 years. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but lots of great individual players and lots of good, well-coached teams in this league.
Yeah. Go ahead, Grace.
You go.
I will say, yeah, no nights off in the NTC. Heck, like I said, we one of our toughest games of the year was at North Clay. I mean, we were losing by 8 at halftime at North Clay, and I think that was a night when Grace and Peyton realized that they needed to say more. And at halftime, I walked out there and I just said, "Is this really going to happen?" And Grace said, "Well," she alluded to warm-ups, and maybe we weren't quite ready to go. And then Peyton said, "We have to fight. We're not fighting." And I think, them realizing at that point they needed to be more vocal. I think that was a see, me being in it for my first year, so impressed with coaching, the talent. I mean, heck, look at the IBCA all-state teams and look how many kids from the NTC are on. That's all right there. So, not going to get any easier moving forward from this year. A lot of young talent, and it's a really solid 1A girls conference. Girls basketball has gotten so much better in the last 10 years. I mean, you had your T-Towns, your Effinghams, but now every team has a player that you got to stop. And, that didn't used to be the case. At least I don't recall it like that. So, really lucky to be as successful as we were this year, with all that talent around us. And it's a lot of fun. It's a heck of an accomplishment for us to win the conference. And, because it's tough.
Yep.
Hey, Grace, I got one last question for you. Since you're going to be moving on to Illinois State, what is the biggest thing you think you need to work on for your game to go to the next level?
I think the biggest adjustment for most girls from high school to college basketball is just the defensive standpoint. The game is so much quicker, fast paced. I think that's just, and my coaches have said that too. Defense is going to be the biggest adjustment.
Have they got a weight room program they will give you to work on between now and when you become a Redbird, that first day of practice?
Yeah, they'll send some stuff over probably, and then we go there, I think, a couple weeks into June. So I won't be graduated for more than a month, and I'll be at campus already.
Yep. And I mean, really, their commitment to you has, been pretty steadfast, because if I'm understanding this correctly, it wasn't too long after you had the knee injury last year that, they kind of let you know, hey, listen, we're still on board. We still want you. And that's got to feel pretty good, because I imagine that's as low of a point as you've been at in your basketball career, to know that you're not gonna be able to finish the season, but then to hear from them and understand, like, hey, we still want you. That's got to feel pretty good for you.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest standouts with them. I remember having to text every coach after found out the results from my MRIs, and I mean, it was scary at the moment, not knowing if they were going to pull their offers, keep them. And she was the first coach to call me and say that we're supporting you every step of the way. We still want you, and that I'll get over this and be back better than I was before. So it was just really good that they were there for that.
Yep. Well, we've kind of already gone past sort of what we promised you as far as taking time out of your Sunday evenings. I know you guys have to be exhausted. Grace, I know you were even at Bloomington yesterday for the all-state recognition. I saw some pictures of you on the court, so you've been go, go, go. But we do appreciate you taking the time. Really looking forward to seeing what your career has in store for you. It's been a pleasure to see you play and represent our area so well the last few years. But good luck the rest of the way. Really excited to see what you do. Just keep working hard, and we're all proud of you.
Thank you so much.
And Coach Carr, look, it's been a pleasure to see you work. When we saw your name, when we saw that you were going to take this job, and we've already talked to you about this once, but was really excited about what the possibilities would be, and didn't disappoint. It was a fun season to watch you work, and sometimes I'd get caught watching Coach Carr on the sideline instead of the game when I was working one. But I hope you had fun, and it's been a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate you guys in the media so much, and everything you do for kids. You build kids' confidence by letting them shine. The sponsors do that with means so much. But yeah, I had a blast this year. Like I said, I'm not sure I deserved this opportunity, but I cherished it once I landed there. And here is a once in a lifetime talent for a thimble full of coaches. And I was lucky enough to cross paths with her. Something I'll be forever grateful for. And her teammates were so special in the way they showed up every day and did what was asked, and they were rewarded for that, Dustin, and they deserved every bit of it. So, a lot of fun, man. I appreciate you guys having us tonight, and everything you do. Safe travels, Illinois.
All right.
Greg,
Well,
Greg, I got to thank you because you've opened the eyes of other old retired coaches.
Oh.
They may not have a wife at home like I do, though, that are going to let them think basketball 8 hours a day and ignore everything else. That's what I did.
You never know. You just never know.
All right. Well, Mike, I think with that we can let Grace and Craig take off. But thanks again, folks, for taking the time for us. We appreciate it, and good luck in the future. We'll see you down the road.
Thank you for having me.
See you guys.
All right. That's Grace Nelson and Craig Carr from Altamont. Thanks to them for joining us. And now it's T-Town time. That's the only team we got left, Mike. But
yeah, and again, we go back to our first guest talking about deep runs from the area, and we've got Altamont carried the banner for the girls for the Final Four. Very well represented. Watched the game. Really thought they were going to get to the ship. Was getting ready to text Coach Carr and tell him, and then a couple things didn't go their way. Those last probably minute and a half, and but then they bounced back, took care of third place. That was awesome, and so it was good. Now we switch focus to the boys. And it's funny. I've watched parts of both T-Town games on NFHS, plus I've also listened to you and Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Listened to you and Matt more than I've watched, by the way. And it's pretty much what we talked about, Dustin. Their defense will always travel. And if it's possible, defensively, to ratchet it up, turn that dial from 8 to 9, I think they have. But the whole difference in this postseason has been the offense they're getting from other kids not named Garrett Gaddis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
It's not been one kid, in the regional, you had kids step up. And then against Tolono, Austin Blummer hit the I was sending you texts during your broadcast every time he hit that little baby jump hook. And I'm like, Cromers played really well. And I think he said, it may have been Steve Raymond. He mentioned that, I think to Steve Raymond, how he's really got his confidence since senior night. He's just kind of decided to be more aggressive. And that's paying off. Mitch Custer and Zach Nieberge, that's huge, because there was times this season when they, people would let them shoot. Mm-hmm. They really would. And they were hesitant. Now they have so much confidence. They believe. I think Steve Raymond used that word in his article. I text Chet probably yesterday. And I said, your kids, you've got them to the point now where they believe. And they do. And I watched the video of Zach Nieberge hitting that shot. And there was no hesitation. There was no, no. bang, it was gone.
Yeah,
And
I mean
he knew it.
That was the big shot, that beat St. Joseph-Ogden in overtime. That overtime started at 50 apiece, and they were still tied at 55. Mitch Custer drives the baseline and wings a pass along the baseline to Zach Nieberge in the corner. He drills it. T-Town never trails again. Zach hit 3 3-pointers that night. Mitch hit 4, I believe.
Yeah. Well, Mitch hit one to start the overtime, I believe, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He hit a little.
Did he hit one to start the game too?
He hit one early. Yeah.
I thought it was pretty early.
But well, Zach actually, and he scored 5 points in that overtime because there was another play where he stripped somebody at midcourt and took it down the other way for a layup. He was as much the difference in that overtime as anybody. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a kid who averages, he scored 11 points that night. That got him up to 122 for the season. He's not a guy that, always is going to put a big number on the board. But again, like you talked about, the willingness to put up the big shot and the trust that the teammates have in him to put him in that position. Mitch Custer could have forced something along the baseline.
Yeah, and it was in that, I think it was in Steve's article also, either Mitch or Zach, either Mitch said, hey, be ready to shoot, because if I drive, I'm looking for you, or Zach, or Zach said, Mitch told me to be ready. And it was almost like that old Michigan State play. You drive the baseline. Custer's literally jumping out of bounds and then throws it to the corner, because if you watch, Zach Nieberge's man comes crashing in to help and leaves him. And awesome. It was awesome. And the best part about it is for T-Town, these kids they're good kids, man. I've had almost all of those kids at some point or another play golf. Some of them played as a freshman, some of them played later, but they're good kids, man. I've had a lot of fun with them.
And the thing is you go to state last year, you finished third in state, you graduate some pretty damn important players off of that team, and it's
probably close to 90% of your points.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty natural for people to just say, well, this is a rebuilding season. And these kids aren't having any of that. They're not thinking that way. They've been thinking since the jump, like, we can win. And
they've got, and again, that's the belief. They've got an identity now, because there was times again, and I know it's stuck in their craw, but the team you saw at St. Joe Ogden is not the team you saw in the Enloe Center. Not even close. Especially from confidence level. Not from effort level, but from a confidence level.
Yeah.
And they have grown so much in a month in the believing.
That's the thing. That game at St. Anthony was on February 2nd. So basically a month ago. But at this point, it might as well have been last season, because.
Well, and remember Garrett Gaddis got in foul trouble and they couldn't score. Garrett Gaddis got in foul trouble. Was it the St. Joe game or the Tolono game?
Tolono, yeah.
He was in foul trouble early. They didn't bat an eye, man. They strapped it on and went.
Yep.
And that's the difference. They have become that team, and that's the exciting thing.
And boy, Joey Nieberge just keeps hitting big free throws for this team too.
Yes.
And I have already said this here, and probably to the point where I need to stop saying it, but really, I was down on Joey Nieberge at the free throw line. Like, I was like, because he's had some games where it just turned into a train that got off the tracks and you couldn't get it back going. Now he steps up there, and I just feel like and maybe I'm just kind of putting this on him, and maybe none of this is happening in his own head, but I just feel like he steps up there with a little more confidence. Like, this is where I want to be. I want to get to this line, and I'm going to make these. Maybe that's a completely, again, I could just be conjuring that up, romanticizing in my head, but I think there might be a little something to it.
But when you say he has confidence, because when it's going bad and you're struggling at the line or you're struggling with your jump shot and the team's not playing well, you start wishing the ball to go in. You shoot a free throw, come on, baby, go in. Now it's in. I know it's in. I know it's in.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference in them across the board. Again, other than their defense has always been there. And it's even gotten a little more aggressive, a little quicker. But yeah,
and it's just that classic T-Town thing too, where they play in your face, they play physical, and they've got the fans on the other side of the gym, and in some cases the coaches on the other bench, beside themselves that how can they get away with this? And
the greatest ever when it would have been the 06 team, Kenny Crawford's 06 team, and they're playing the super sectional. No, yes, playing the super sectional against Nokomis. And Dad and I got tickets at Eastern. We're right at the end of the scores table. Dad had connections. So we're sitting right next to the Nokomis bench. And these guys on the bench are going batshit crazy, Whitey. How come they only have one foul? They're screaming at the officials about fouls. And I'm just sitting here smiling like, buddy, they're going to get inside of you and guard you, and they know how to do it without getting called fouls. Do they know how to maybe tug on a jersey without getting caught? Maybe. But that's the thing. And that's, and I always had to stress when I faced them, they're going to punch us in the mouth. We got to punch them back. There's a lot of teams that don't like getting punched in the mouth. It takes them a long time to get up off the mat. And sometimes it's, that gives them a couple minutes to get things going and build a little cushion and hang on. But I'll tell you what, it's different when you face them.
Yeah. And let me say this. St. Joe-Ogden was up for it. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
very athletic group.
And the thing is that made shot, missed shot. If you were not ready, they were going to beat you down the floor. Okay. They one pass and they were in an odd man rush. And so you had to be back in transition. And again, it didn't matter whether it was off of a long rebound or off of a made shot. They'd get that thing in bound. And if you weren't ready, they'd have numbers on you on the other end before you could even blink an eye. And they, to T-Town's credit, they made the adjustment. I felt like they did a pretty good job of not getting killed by it. I mean, you're going to get beat by it occasionally, but they didn't let it become the X factor in a game.
Right. And I noticed one of the things I noticed on the bench in that game, it was Luke. Luke Undren was sitting on the end of the bench. He and Chet were probably the two most visible. Every time a shot went up, one of them's up screaming to get back, get back, get back.
Yeah.
Because, I've always felt like that's one of the ways you have to attack T-Town. You got to attack them north and south. You go east and west with them in a half-court game, they're going to drive you bonkers.
Yep.
They're going to drive you nuts. You got to attack north and south, and that's what it looked like St. Joe was trying to do and was having some success at times. And when you're, beating a Mitch Custer, a Zach Nieberge, you're beating some of those kids back down the floor, Gaddis. That's work because they take pride in not giving up those layups. So they bent a little bit, but obviously they didn't break.
Yeah. The only other thing, and the thing that I was afraid was going to end up being the difference in a negative way for the Shoes was that, man, they missed a lot of point blank shots in that game.
Yeah, and I wasn't watching it on. That's when I was listening to you guys on the radio at that time. Yeah, and you have those nights sometimes where those things happen, and they persevered. I heard Chet even say that on his post game show. That's one of his first remarks. Man, how many bunnies did we miss?
Mm-hmm.
At some point, that's going to really bite him. I don't know. That's probably the first time this postseason that's really happened.
It's the first time that I've seen. Now, I did not.
Yeah, well, you and I saw him play Newton. You saw him play Unity. I mean, so
Yeah.
But that's good. And I think, and again, I'm alluding to Steve Raymond's article a little bit because he talked about this group always felt like in the shadow of that group from last year. Now they're able to kind of make their own mark, which is good. But I'm happy for the kids. I really am. They're good. I mean, again, I can't say this enough. Good group.
Yeah. And I have said this to a few people that I've talked to this weekend. I think that people around the area can be susceptible to getting a little bit of T-Town fatigue this time of year. Oh, the shoes are T-Town's making another run. Great, the thing is, though, if you go to these games and watch them, and I have for the most part, throughout the years, watched as an impartial observer, or maybe a bit of a partial observer by the time we get to this point in the year. I don't have that feeling because of the way they go about their business and the enthusiasm that they have for it and that their community has for it. It never feels old to me because they turn out and support that group so much, and it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter who's on the team or anything like that. They just show up. I mean, Shelbyville High School was jam-packed Friday night. And you just love to sit in the middle of that and watch that. It's not like that everywhere. But with T-Town, they just love it, and it's hard not to feel, to me, hard not to feel that enthusiasm through them also.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting tomorrow night. That'll be an entirely different gym than it's been other visits. I was on the bench there twice when we were down there. You follow the 1A, you got all those people there, and then the 2A. So you've got 4 fan bases there, usually for at least a quarter and a half. That's not going to be the case tomorrow. It's going to be a little different atmosphere.
Yeah.
And that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because you almost now have, man, is this building too big? You know what I mean?
That's the thing. Like, I have admittedly, this will be my first time in SIU's arena, whatever it's called now. They don't call it SIU Arena anymore, but I don't.
Bank.
Yeah, I don't. Whatever whatever the corporate sponsor is. Listen, I'm gonna call it Assembly Hall. If I get there, I called it Redbird Arena all weekend. Sorry, Seth Q. I'm sure you'll be fine without me remembering the name of your credit union or whatever you are every time. But yeah, it does seem like a shame to have the atmosphere that you have in these high school gyms. And I get it. It's cool to play a super on a college floor and to get that, that opportunity to play in a different setting. But I think it does. And that's one thing where Lance Arena, and it's not even called Lance Arena anymore. It's Groninger, I believe, at Eastern.
Oh, it's still Lance Arena to me, Whitey.
Yeah, well, it's like first mid-court at Groninger Arena in the Lance Athletic Complex, something like that. Anyway, that's one. I mean, you say what you will about that as a college floor, compared to other places that you could go.
Oh, but it's a great venue for a super sectional, man.
But you can get the people. Everyone's on top. You get it filled up in there. And people are just on top of you, and it's loud. The sound bounces around in there. It's better than a high school gym, but it still kind of has that high school gym feel to it.
Right.
And I don't know that. I just don't know that Southern and Assembly Hall also, State Farm Center. When you get there, like it's hard to replicate that feeling.
When we went to Springfield for 2 years in the Super, that facility I liked it. Two big steep sides of bleachers, and it was noisy. It's just hard to be noisy at SIU. It really is.
Yeah.
It just gets lost. I'd love to see the 1A, 2A rotate. now next year 1A goes to Carbondale and 2A's here. It's just I've always partial. I've seen a lot of great super sectionals in that building.
Yep.
And the noise, it holds the noise well.
Yeah. Super sectionals and you know, in the heyday of the Charleston Holiday Tournament, you get some championship games that there would be a very, very large turnout, not just the fan bases, but just interested observers from around the area. Because it's a nice central location, I think, too, where people can travel from a half hour, 45 minutes away to see a really good ball game. And
right. You would get a lot of, you know, third party people there. That's for sure.
I mean, we'll see. You know, I again will have to profess my ignorance to being in the arena in Carbondale. I'll have a better feel for that, you know, about 24 hours from now. But you know, the one thing is that you're in that game. You're playing Benton. Benton knocked off the top team in the state, Breese Central, in its own sectional championship. Now Benton got to host the sectional, and they got to play on their home floor, and they were able to win 30.
Another great gym.
Yeah, I saw pictures of that, and listen, there were no empty seats there either. It was jammed full.
That's a big building.
But Benton's, you know, listen, Breese Central was the #1 team. Benton's they're no slouch. Okay, they're a top 5 team in the state by any metric you want to look at, whether you're looking at AP or whether you're looking at Aaron Britton. They're going to be a handful, obviously. I mean, you'll get to a super sectional, I'll be in a handful. And they've played a tough schedule too. Like we've made a pretty big deal about how tough schedule T-Town's played, #3 in all of Class 2A. Well, Benton's at 13 for strength of schedule. So it's not, they're not out there playing cup.
Right. No. And I don't know if T-Town and Benton have played since, what year was it? We beat them at the Pinckneyville tournament.
No idea.
Let's just say, Whitey, I had a really, really, really good seat for
that. Well, you've had a good seat for a lot of good ones involved.
Yeah, but I was in the special seat for that one.
Yeah. I cannot say that I have had the opportunity to sit and watch any footage of that Benton Breese Central game. I mean, I've seen Breese Central, so I understand, you know, that they're an extremely good team. Now, granted, that was all the way back at Thanksgiving, so
right. But you know,
I know
Jeremy Schubert's one of the top coaches around. I mean, there's no debating that. And you know, I was kind of shocked. I thought they would be the opponent for whoever came out of this way at the Super, and they were close. They were within 2 points. Benton got off to a 10-point lead that first quarter, and that was kind of enough. I mean, I don't know if Central ever actually got the lead. I know they tied it, and then Benton kind of pulled ahead again and kind of hung on down the stretch. Benton made a lot of free throws late. I think they were 10 of 11 as a team in the fourth quarter, maybe.
I'll have to do a little bit more digging tonight, but you know, no matter what, it's just been an impressive run for T-Town. I mean, I was doing my usual research before the game Friday night about, you know, how many sectionals will this be if they win, and I mean, you're playing in your 3rd straight super sectional, you know. I believe it's 9 of 13 years now that they've won a sectional championship. It's just so difficult to do, and it's easy for that to just feel routine, but it's so difficult to do. Oh,
yeah, it is a hard thing to do. There's no doubt about it. And again, you got to have moments where you get a break. You know, I say lucky. You got to get a break. You got at some point you've had a shot somehow roll in. You've had a shot somehow roll off. You've had that block charge go your way. I mean, there's all kinds of little things. Many go unnoticed. The head coach knows.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I'm just trying to think. Have I seen that moment for T-Town yet? Tanner Jacob, the kid for St. Joe Ogden that hit a huge three for them to tie it at I think it was a 55. He had another one after Zach Nieberge had hit his big 3-pointer to break that 55.
Yeah.
He had one go about halfway down and pop back out.
Yep,
And then and St. Joe Ogden also had an 0 for 2 trip to the free throw line down the stretch in that game.
Yep.
So that all happened.
I think
In the last, in the last minute and a half or so.
Well, and you go back in the Tolono game, there was a
technical foul,
inbounds play. There was out of bounds Tolono. I've even talked to T-Town fans who thought it was, they'd committed a foul. They didn't get the call. Tolono kid, coach now. There's a T on the bench. I don't know if it's head coach who it was. That went from potentially going to shoot free throws for you to 2 free throws for T-Town on the ball. And that's a swing of points and momentum. And again, it's just little things.
It's hard to know probably until it's all over with, what was.
Sure. Oh, exactly.
But listen, at this point, you got as good a chance as anybody to make that return trip to 2A. Like St. Joe Ogden was a very good team. Tolono Unity, a very good team. Newton, a very good team. Like, you've beaten 3 really quality opponents in a row. So at this point, there's no reason for anyone to say you don't have a chance to keep winning ball games. You know what I'm saying?
And when you look at your schedule, they're battle tested.
Yes.
There's a 3A super sectional, Mount Zion Centralia. That's 2 people they played.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you happen to see who's also in the 3A super sectional?
Tell me.
DePaul Prep. That move from 2A to 3A hasn't bothered them at all.
Yeah, they were awfully good last year.
They're heavily favored. I read an article in the Sun-Times. They appear to be heavily favored to make it back to Chambana.
Yeah, you look at 2A as far as who's going to be playing tomorrow night. Benton and T-Town, of course. You've got Beecher and Chicago Phillips playing up at Joliet. You've got Williamsville and Macomb playing in Springfield.
Macomb beat Rock Ridge and Peoria Manual in the sectional. Those are 2 monster wins.
And then you've got Chicago Latin School and Byron playing over at the Sterling Super Section.
Byron undefeated still?
No, they've got a couple losses. Beecher is
both late.
Beecher's
undefeated. Beecher's going. Beecher beat Byron.
Yeah. So if I'm looking at the last rankings that Aaron Britton put out. Okay. And Beecher's number 3. So they're playing Chicago Phillips, which is number 7. So there's 3 versus 7 playing in one super sectional. Williamsville, he does, let me see here. Am I missing something? No, Williamsville is not part of his.
They were unranked.
Top 25 that he ranks.
Yeah.
So they're playing against a Macomb team that was 19th.
Okay.
Chicago Latin, I'm not seeing on here. So they were not part of his top 25. Byron is 8th.
Yeah.
And then T-Town, of course, was 15th in the last one against Benton, which is number 4. And the St. Joe Ogden team that T-Town just knocked off was 10th. Okay.
Where was Tolono at? Where did they end up? I know they had a couple of losses.
Yeah, Tolono was at 14. So
okay. Yeah.
So why not? Why not the shoes? There's no reason. No reason why not.
Yeah. I mean, they are not going to see anything out of Benton they haven't seen this year. Benton's big man, as good and as athletic as they say he is, I don't know if he's going to be as good and athletic as the Anderson kid at Mount Zion.
Yeah.
Or the Trimble kid at Mount Zion. Or the Lincoln, the Custer kid at I'm saying they faced it. They're not going to face anyone who's going to guard harder than Centralia. Okay.
Yep.
So that's just 2 games on their schedule. Trust me. There's a method to their madness. And again, they got some losses, but the kids are confident now, man, and that's their key.
And I still say, I mean, there's 10 losses there, but what's the bad one? What's the bad loss that you look at and be like, man, we had no business losing that game? I mean, those are all quality opponents for T-Town, I mean, just looking at it, a couple to Olney. Olney's an awfully good team. 1 to Unity, Mount Vernon, Tuscola, Mount Zion.
Mount Vernon, who was in a sectional championship. Tuscola, who was in a sectional.
St. Anthony, which, I mean, it didn't go St. Anthony's way in the postseason, but they were the #1 team in 1A, I mean, there's just not a bad loss on there. It's all to get you to this moment. It's all to get you here.
Right.
So,
good luck to Chet and the boys tomorrow night.
Hey, a couple of things to touch on here. I alluded to it when we had Grace on, but again, she was an all-state first teamer for both the Associated Press and the IBCA. And by the way, Grace, she was an IBCA first teamer all 4 years, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year.
Pretty impressive.
She was AP second team her freshman year, first team her sophomore year, second team her junior year, which of course was cut short after 12 games with a knee injury,
right,
and first team this year. And she was the NTC MVP 3 out of 4 years. She still made the first team last year, but they put Sydney Richards from Neoga in at the MVP during Grace's junior year. But all told, I had her at 2,864 points. That could be off by a little bit, but not much, I don't think. I've been trying to keep pretty good track. So, and when you're looking at it, her freshman season was the COVID year, so she only got to play 16 games. Her junior year, the knee cost her, probably about 18 games, somewhere in that neighborhood. So if she gets a normal career, normal number of games,
she lost the season.
Yeah, well over 3,000, if not pushing closer to 4. I mean, she scored 1,000 points this year, 1,066 this year by my count. So, but she wasn't the only area player to get those IBCA honors. On the first team, also from the area, Stacy Vonderheide, friend of the show, was a first teamer out of St. Anthony. She made the IBCA first team. Nancy Ruhal from St. Anthony, and remember, she's just a sophomore. She was on the second team for the IBCA. And then Deanna Hazlett, the freshman from Brownstown St. Elmo, she's on the third team.
Good for her.
Yeah. And you also have Lexi Seabaugh from Brownstown St. Elmo on the special mention. You got Macy Rodman from CHBC. You have got Haley Campbell and Bryn Richards from Neoga on there on the special mention. So lots of local flavor to that IBCA. Craig Carr mentioned that. And then from Teutopolis in the 2A, you got Chloe Probst on the special mention grouping. She'll be back. And in 3A, I believe Effingham had somebody on special mention. Yeah, Alyssa
Martin.
Yeah. So there's your local reps from the IBCA teams, and then as far as the Associated Press, you had, of course, Grace Nelson was on the AP first team for 1A, and that's a 5-person first team. On the second team, Stacy Vonderheide was in there from St. Anthony again. And then looking at some of your honorable mentions here, a person who's really prepared wouldn't have to just read these and scan it for it. But Nancy Ruhal, she's on this honorable mention list as well for the Associated Press. And I don't know. Yeah, Chloe Prups was honorable mention for 2A as well.
Okay, good.
I feel like maybe you had some Effingham flavor on the Associated Press 3A as well. Yeah, Alyssa Martin, honorable mention there. So yeah, you know, good work. By the way, the All Apollo team also came out for girls basketball. And so I'm going to.
Wasn't Martin first team there?
Yes, she was. You had, well, Martin and Bella Austin both made the
Oh,
first.
that's right.
Yeah, they were first team All Apollo Conference. And then on the second team, Sydney Donaldson got in there. And
Okay.
that's six on the first team, 5 on the second team. So they don't.
Yeah, you got 3 of the 11.
Yeah, they don't go overboard by any means with how many people they put on there, but Effingham, deservedly so, gets 3 players mentioned there: Martin and Austin on the first team, and Donaldson on the second team. And guess what? They're all going to be back next year. Effingham has got they got a lot coming back next year, and so does T-Town for that matter. So,
oh yeah,
and I mean, Craig made sure to say when he was doing an interview with us, which, by the way, big props to him for getting out of the locker room and finding his way up to us to get an interview on after the third place game. But he mentioned it. His cupboard's not bare, and there's a lot of NTC teams that are still going to be very solid next year. So there's all that. Got all that mentioned. I think.
Hey, Whitey, did you see the video ending to the Quincy normal sectional final?
I didn't.
Quincy's up 1, 4 seconds to go, have the ball to go the length of the floor. So they're inbounding it under the normal basket. Normal's got a good kid, 6'9", 6'10". He's a big kid.
Mm-hmm.
So he's all over the kid inbounding the ball, which is causing fits. Inbounded it to a Quincy kid breaking to the corner, and it wasn't a pass. I mean, he kind of was able to get a hand on it. Falling out of bounds, he just turned and fired it blindly back in, right to the big kid from normal. 1 dribble, dunk, buzzer, sectional's over. 4 seconds, you're up 1, inbounding the ball, and get beat by a dunk at the buzzer.
I mean,
that's tough.
It's not quite. I have to feel like the Centralia girls probably feel similar about the way things got.
Yeah, I agree.
Overtime against Effingham, they had it. They were in the catbird seat, but
yep. I listened to that one on the radio.
Yeah. Well, we've been going for about an hour and a half.
Time to wrap it up.
I'm running out of things to say, but we got one more basketball show to do, because no matter what, we'll have a super sectional for T-Town to talk about. Hopefully that's not it.
Hopefully we talk about 3 more T-Town games.
3 more games. That would be nice. And if we have 3 more games to talk about, well, tradition sort of dictates that we would try to get the coach on.
I'll see what I can do.
But no matter what, really good luck to the boys and all the people that are going to make that trip. Again, it's a fan base that's second to none.
But it's only 1 game, so you're not going to get home as late.
No, it's well, it'll be late enough though. Carbondale's still. That's the only thing about it. It's a long way to go, but you know what? It's worth it. It's worth it to see a super sectional, and it never does old. So, with that, I think we can call it a week. But thanks again to Craig Carr and Grace Nelson for joining us. And it really has been, I mean, just a once in a generation opportunity for a school to have a player of Grace's caliber. And it's been just from my perspective, been a treat to get to witness that and see what she's done. And she's not done yet. She'll be a great college player. I have every.
I hope she has a very good career.
Yep, she'll put the time in. That's the consensus from everybody who talks about her, is that she'll put the work in to do what she needs to do. And I think Illinois State got a good one. So I think we'll leave it at that. But if you're still stuck with us here, if you've stuck with us this long and you haven't already followed us on subscribed on YouTube or followed us on Facebook, well,
we're getting closer to 200, Whitey.
What are you waiting for? Maybe this will be the one. Maybe this will be the one to see a little spike. People want to hear what Grace and Craig had to say. Maybe this will be the one that puts a little uptick on the line chart there. We'll see. But I'm rambling. So Mike, let's call it a week, and we will talk next week about the T-Town boys.
Sounds good, Whitey.
All right, take it easy.